What's up, my wizards? It's Dev. From Mtg, we like magic, especially today because I get to talk about something like really fun. Here's the top 20 cards that I want to see reprinted in Dominaria. Well, Dominaria is a super important set. You got to go big on this one, or at least I think you do. And if you want to know how big I mean, just wait till we get to the top 10 of this list. But first, a few caveats. We got to do that for a list. First of all, lists are subjective. Always just as a general rule, remember that. Second of all, no, I don't think they're going to reprint all 20 of these cards. What, you think I'm stupid? If we just get one or two of these cards, I'll be totally fine with that. Rule number 3, there's going to be more spells than creatures on this list, just because that's kind of how Magic has worked over the last few years. Creatures have gotten steadily better and better. There's not a whole bunch of stuff from the olden days that I would really be thrilled to see reprinted as far as creatures go, but spells have gotten steadily worse, as a consequence, really, of the creatures getting better and better. So there's going to be an awful lot of spells on this list, because spells used to be ridiculous, and now they're just kind of like, yeah, it does damage to a thing. So it's going to be spells. And finally, I know that a lot of people have different legendary creatures that they want to see reprinted. I am totally with you on that, but there's no legendary creatures on this list. I'm actually saving that for a different kind of video, so there's that too. Just remember all of those things I've said so far. And finally, before I actually get into the list of things I want to see them reprint, I'm going to run through a quick slideshow of stuff, if I can manage it as fast as possible, of stuff that I'd really rather not see them reprint, starting with Lord of Atlantis, which is kind of a bit of a surprise. If you'd asked me last month, I'd have said, yeah, totally, reprint this in Dominaria, that'd be amazing. But now I'm just not so sure. Now, the deck plays anywhere between 12 and 22 drops, so you got to ask yourself, where can we even fit that in this deck? Can we fit it? Is it worth it? Answer is probably yes, but does it make Merfolk too powerful? There's that too. Merfolk's on the verge, so it needs a good piece, but I got doubts. I got worries about Lord of Atlantis. It either makes the deck too powerful, or the deck just has to make a lot of concessions to actually fit yet another 2-drop, so it actually seems a little awkward to me right now. There's also just a bunch of, although old school and cool, and I have love for them, really unfun cards that you just should not touch. Don't bring them anywhere near standard Magic, especially. Like Meddling Mage, don't do that. Armageddon, I shouldn't have to tell you not to do that. Balance, that is also an old card that I like a lot, but you should not come anywhere near. And then there's also Stasis and Winter Orb. Those are super not fun to play against. So never do that to Magic again. And Stormcrow. Stormcrow is too, don't do it, kids. Don't. For the love of God, don't reprint Stormcrow. But for in all seriousness, though, the last card I want to talk about here is Lightning Bolt. This actually won a recent Twitter poll that I put up. What card would you most like to see reprinted? And Lightning Bolt took it by a lot. Actually, it was like 42% out of 4 options. So, by a steep margin, Lightning Bolt won. But at the end of the day, I think that this would do so much for Mono Red. And Mono Red already is really good. And Red Black Aggro is really good. And I just don't know that you want to do that to standard right now. Giving them a tool like Lightning Bolt is probably just a bit too much if you want to get right down to brass tacks, so I'm just not sure that we should do this. But there's a bunch of cards that I think we should reprint, so let's get to those. First, some honorable mentions, because it's one of my lists, always honorable mentions, but I've only got a couple this time. First of all, just reprint Savannah Lines. You should probably do that. I don't think that it's ridiculous enough to earn an actual slot on the list. I think you have to reprint stuff way above the power level of Savannah Lions, but there is a Cats deck in Standard right now, in case you forgot, and it would really like this. And besides that, that would give us two power 1-drops in White right now in Standard. And if we really wanted to go back to the old days at all with Dominaria, then we got to make White Weenie like an actual real deck type again, and this would go a long way towards that. Give White a lot of power at the 1-drop slot, so wouldn't be adverse to seeing it for that reason. But there's also Cats. Well, we've actually hit the list. What are we, 5 minutes in? Thanks for sticking around. But anyway, we've actually hit the list at this point. Number 20, we got to come with some fire. We got to come with something big to start the list off to let you know how serious I am. So, number 20, I just want them to bring back Flashback. That's a tough sentence, actually, to get through. Say it 5 times. Anyway, I want them to bring back Flashback, and I'll take Chainer's Edict. That would be super awesome to get another printing of, just saying that. Take Chainer's Edict, but even if we can't get that, Deep Analysis, that has a pretty vanilla flavor. That's safe to reprint, probably. And there's a ton of Flashback cards that I'd like to see back, and I'd like to see you experiment with the mechanic again, Wizards. This is a lot of people's favorite mechanic of all time. I would love to see it return in Dominaria. We've got plenty of Graveyard Hating stuff to counter this right now in the format. Just not really seeing why it would be such a huge deal, or even really problematic to bring back Flashback. I think it'd be really fun and, one of the most beloved mechanics of all time. So do it. Number 19 is 3 different cards in one. I'll start with City of Brass. Is that a little bit too powerful? Okay, that's fine. I'll give you that. Let's play Gemstone Mine then. Can we reprint that? Even that may be too powerful. I'll take Undiscovered Paradise. I really don't. I don't care. Just give us any of these lands and I'll be okay with that, you know, especially City of Brass. Like, imagine how much Paladin of Atonement would like City of Brass. Well, yeah, think about that. But anyway, I'll take any of these because all of the tribal decks right now would love these in Standard. We've got plenty of, like, control decks that would probably like to play lands like this, so we just haven't had a land that like taps for anything and there's not too much consequence to it in a really long time. And I'm not talking about Spire of Industry. I know you're telling me Spire of Industry in the comments. I want something that's even, you know, easier to enable than Spire of Industry. I'll take City of Brass, but I'll go all the way down and take Undiscovered Paradise. Just give us something. But number 18 is Teferi's Moat, because I really want to hose Mono Red. It's just a really good deck right now, and it has been for a long time. Like, even past the current Standard and the Standard before it, Mono Red's just been a feasible option for a really long time, and it's one of my favorite kinds of decks. I love Mono Red aggro. I always have. Beating heart. Since I was 12, loving Mono Red aggro, but it's been kind of a while. So there's going to be a few things on this list that might help hose Mono Red aggro, and this is the first entry right here. If you're on the play, especially, you drop this before they even get Hazoret down, and you put them in trouble because Mono Red just doesn't have any way at all of dealing with enchantments. There's just not much they can do other than siding Glorybringer eventually. That's about it. Maybe Rekindling Phoenix in some of those decks. Heart of Kirin would still get past this. I think there's plenty in the format to counter a card like this to where it's not really a big deal to reprint it. But against certain Mono Red builds, this is going to be the end of their good time. So, and I think it's about time to end the good time of some Mono Red players. It's just, again, it's been a really long time, you guys. But number 17 is Impulse. Don't worry, this is not just an I like control decks video. I did tell you there are going to be a lot of spells in this video, and some of those will lend themselves to control decks because that's what good spells do, and Impulse is definitely one of them. Honestly, though, I don't think this is out of the realm of possibility. We haven't had a really good, like, 2-mana instant speed, draw a card and filter a card in a while. You know, we've got Strategic Planning, Chart of Course. These are good options, but they're sorcery speed. And a control deck has always, throughout a lot of Magic's history, had a decent way. You know, whether it was, Think Twice even. You know, that was a decent card back in the day. A relatively decent 1 or 2 mana way to draw cards at the end of the opponent's turn, or in response to a spell to try to find a counter. And we really just don't have a lot of good options in the way of doing that right now. And I think Supreme Will's in the format, so I highly doubt that they'll reprint Impulse, but I don't necessarily think it would break Standard either. Number 16 is a spicy one, Daybreak Coronet. This needs another reprint. It's only been printed twice. It's like $7.50 right now, and that's a bit much. Just a bit much, you know. This card just doesn't need to be almost $8, I don't think. And I don't think it would break Standard, but I do think it'd see an awful lot of play. Right now, Blue-White Auras is like very close to a real deck in Standard. It's been posting up results. It's a really exciting deck. It's a fun deck to play. And this piece would really put it over the top. But again, I don't think it breaks it. Like, I'm pretty sure that most auras don't break anything. You know, it's just like the most maligned type of card in Magic is the good old aura. But if you can actually stick this to something and get it in an attack step, you're probably gonna win. Especially, especially if it's an unblockable creature already, or if it has Curious Obsession on it. You know, you've really put yourself a long way towards winning the game if you can get this down on turn 3, for instance. So I think Daybreak Coronet could have a real chance in the format without necessarily breaking the format. It would only be great in that one deck. So I don't think it really hurts too much, and it needs another printing. While we're on auras, I might as well stick with that theme. Number 15 is Rancor. Do it. Why? Just do it. Ask yourself a question. What deck wants this card right now? What deck wants it? Green-Black Snake, does it want this? Like, green isn't even really, it's one of the least played colors in Standard at the moment, at least from what it's looking like. It looks like blue, black, and red are the best colors by far in Standard. Green and white are sort of left by the wayside. There's really not a whole lot of decks that include them, unless you're talking about Jund lists that have like one Vraska and stuff like that. So there's just, sometimes Jade Light Ranger, but there's really not a whole lot of green going around Standard already, and there's really just not a whole lot of decks that Rancor just slots right into right this second. Sure, we could make like Vant Bogles, just talked about Daybreak Coronet. We've got unblockable guys in the format. We got a Danto Vanguard. Things would look nice, but the mana might be a little bit thin in that deck. So I'm just not really sure what even, aside from like, obviously Mono Green Stompy wants this card, but this wouldn't make Mono Green Stompy too good to beat right now. So I just think it's actually kind of safe to reprint Rancor. I kind of hope they do. Number 14 is Terror. This started off as Doomblade, but then I'm making a compromise. I'm making a compromise, you guys. Is it safe to reprint Terror? Is it safe to reprint Doomblade, for that matter? But I'll take Terror just because, like, this can't kill Glintsteve Siphoner, this can't kill Torrential Gearhulk or Heart of Kirin, a couple of other things that you might care about. There's, you know, this definitely doesn't spread as far as it used to. Let's just say that. There are definitely huge important threats in the format. You know, this doesn't kill Hazoret, this doesn't kill Scarab God forever, this doesn't kill Rekindling Phoenix forever. So I just think there's a lot of reasons this card is actually super safe to print right now, but it would actually still be really often played removal in like a blue-black control deck. So I think you can do it, and it wouldn't be too big of a problem. Reprint Terror. I think you can. My number 13 are the Urza's Block creature lands. We need creature lands back. Real, actual, like, man lands like we used to have. We need those. I know we just lost some. We had Hissing Quagmire, Walking Fumarole, a bunch of other stuff that nobody played, like Needle Spires. But these are the ones I'd want to see back the absolute most. I think creature lands have a place in almost any format. You know, if we're going to print a bunch of good removal again, which BT Dubs, I think we should print a bunch of good removal again. But if we do that, it'd be great to have man lands. Almost any deck can play them. They stretch the opponent's resources. They're another threat that we can play. And we've got stuff like Ramunap Excavator in the format right now in Standard to really help make these awesome. So I can see a lot of reasons to play creature lands. There's always a lot of reasons to play creature lands. Just give them back to us. Number 12 is a weird one, sort of Gorilla Shaman. And it doesn't do a whole heck of a lot in Standard, but it might be nice to reprint it for Pauper. Just so you know, just so Pauper gets another printing of it and it doesn't go out of control when people start speculating. There's that too, but in Standard, I don't think this does a whole heck of a lot. You know, it's good protection against like mana rocks if you print some of those. I'm just like not sure this would have a huge effect, but I wouldn't mind it getting printed again for a multitude of reasons. At number 11, I'm going to cheat. There's actually 2 entries because I would not mind seeing either one of these, and they fill sort of the same purpose. So, number 11, Filter Lands from Odyssey or Pain Lands from everywhere. Ice Age, I guess. The Ice Age Pain Lands are all, you know, allied color Pain Lands. And then what was it? The Apocalypse dual lands, those Pain Lands are off color, enemy colors. So reprint the whole cycle if you want to, reprint half the cycle if you want to. It doesn't matter to me. But give us some more dual lands, do something. I've already asked for, you know, an any land, like City of Brass, that'd be fine. But you do need to print another dual-colored land, and I would not mind Pain Lands at all. Let me just tell you. Would not mind Pain Lands at all. But Filter Lands would be fine, too. So just give us something. We need something, and these are probably the 2 safest things to print. And I think the Filter Lands could probably use another printing. We haven't seen these very often. Now we're in the top 10, brothers and sisters. This is where things get super serious, and you get to really know what I mean by, like, reprint big stuff. So we're going to start the top 10 off with something that might be slightly controversial, but I'm going to do it anyway. Number 10, Black Vice. I would love to see Black Vice again. Just the classic anti-control card. It would be sweet, and yeah, it would give some aggro decks even a boost. A lot of decks could play this card to great effect. You know, Black Vice is just nearly guaranteed damage against a bunch of different decks in any given format. Even some mid-range decks. It doesn't have to just be purely control. And if you want to have a control for this and reprint like Ivory Tower along with it, go for it, Haas. It's totally fine. Don't mind. All I'm saying is Black Vice looks ridiculous in a vacuum, but they could definitely print hate for any of the next 10 cards. So this is just to really show you how serious I am. Yes, I think they should start reprinting things on this level. And number 9, the Rack. Yeah, I'll stick on this. We'll do the inverse of Black Vice, the classic, you know, discard deck. Finisher, the win con. We haven't had something as good as the Rack in forever, and I'd just love to see the Rack just straight up reprinted. Is this super broken in Standard? Is it super broken in Standard, you guys? Like, this would be great against aggro decks. Just throwing that out there. You know, this is another control against aggro decks if you want to throw this in the sideboard for control. I think this is better than running like Authority of the Consoles, for instance. So, unless it's not. Well, actually, that's a really good debate for how good Rack is right now. But there's actually an argument for a discard deck if we had Rack in Standard right now. And Modern gets to play 8 Rack. Can we play 4 Rack? Can we play 4 Rack at least in Standard? Why can't we have this card back? I don't think it's that broken. My number 8 is Fireball. I would just love to see this card back. I just want a red X spell back. We haven't had one in what feels like a couple of years, you know, or at least a decent one. And right now in Standard, if I'm correct, we don't have like a red X spell for realsies. So we need one back, and I just want to bring back like the granddaddy of them all. I'd love to see Fireball in Standard again. Be decent against some aggro builds, I guess. But this would be a great kill shot for a lot of decks that run these ridiculous lands like the new Tolarian Academy and Sanctum of the Sun that taps for your life total. I would just love to see a huge red X spell to pump into those, you know? That's so classic Magic. Why we need something like that back. I'll take Fireball, but I'll go all the way down. I'll compromise with you. I'll take Karavek's Torch. You know, they probably won't reprint Karavek's Torch. It's got a guy's name in it, but I'll take, you know, Gitu Fire. I'll take Volcanic Geyser. That's an instant speed card. That would actually be, you can make a case for that being more dangerous than Fireball, but if I had to make a choice, it'd be the old boy Fireball. I'd love to see this card back in Standard. My number 7 is 2 cards, but it's kind of the same card. Not really, but I'm cheating again. Anyway, my number 7 is Stone Rain or Pillage. Can we have this back? Like, I'm not asking for Rampant Growth back, but I'm asking for Stone Rain back. And hey, you just kind of gave us Rampant Growth back. So it's only natural you give us Stone Rain back, right? This makes sense. I think we might be ready for that. Are we grown back up enough for that? I don't know, man. It feels like we put the kid gloves on and said like, oh no, you can't have Dark Ritual anymore. You can't have Stone Rain anymore. You can't have Turn 1 Ramp anymore. You can't have Lightning Bolt anymore. And I agree with them on stuff like Lightning Bolt. Maybe that's a little bit too powerful, but I don't think that 3 mana LD is too powerful. I don't want Dark Ritual back either. That's too powerful. But again, Stone Rain, I don't think it's in the same class as those cards. You can print it again. My number 6 is a Haymaker. My number 6 is Tarmogoyf, and if you think that's crazy, it was originally Wasteland. But Wasteland was kind of cheating. It's from Wrath. It's not from Dominaria, so that's kind of cheating, but I'll cheat again in just a second here, so don't worry. This is just stuff I want, but most of it's from Dominaria itself. Anyway, Tarmogoyf, I think one could make a case for, is kind of actually safe to reprint right now in Standard. Again, ton of graveyard hate, ton of creatures you could actually say might be better than this. I mean, it's been over 10 years, over 10 years since Tarmogoyf was printed. Creatures have gotten better and better. You could make a case that in the right deck, Long Tusk Cub is better than this. And this is still something you have to enable in Standard. It's not like you just place it on turn 2 and then turn 3. Oh, it's a 5/6. It's not. It's not how the card works. Do it, Wizards. Stop not doing it. Like, Tarmogoyf isn't even that important in Modern anymore. It's really not. It's really not as important as it used to be at all. So I just don't think that Tarmogoyf is the legend it once was, and you can reprint it, bring the price down just a little bit. I know you don't want to admit that it's not a crazy card anymore, Wizards. They really staked a lot on the reputation of Tarmogoyf, you know, a lot of marketing and all that. Like, when they did the masterpieces a few sets back, I think it was in a Masters set, all the marketing was like, foil Tarmogoyf! So, you know, I know you've built up a lot on this card's reputation, but honestly, I don't think the card is as important as it once was. I don't think it occupies the pillar that it used to. So, I think it might actually be okay to reprint this card in Standard, put it back into rotation, get the price down a little bit, because, you know, it's not like who cares. It's not like who cares, but it's kind of like who cares. My number 5 is Damnation. Will you also just pull the trigger on this again? Like, I know you've reprinted it in multiple different, master sets and stuff, and it's been a masterpiece before. But I just, again, you could go ahead and do it. I will reiterate at this point that I don't expect them to reprint all 20 of these cards, and a lot of them, especially 10 through 1, I think they'll be way too chicken to reprint, and Damnation is one of them. You know, for the last few years, you can bet on one thing, and that's Wizards not reprinting Damnation in Standard. But I hope they reverse that trend. You know, we don't have a really good, note that qualifier, a really good 4-mana Black Wrath right now. You know, we've got Yehini's Expertise, but again, I said good. You know, Yehini's Expertise is just okay. I want a really good one, so Damnation coming back would be amazing. And yeah, you could reprint Wrath of God, but we've already got Fumigate, Settle the Wreckage. There's so much in white that we can do already in the way of sweepers. You just gave us Slaughter the Strong. You know, I really think it might be the time, you guys. We need it's been forever since Languish was in the format. We need a really good black sweeper again. So this might be the time. This might be the place. Probably isn't, but I think that you could make the case that Standard could house something like this and it wouldn't be a big deal. You know, again, Hazoret, Ronus, indestructible creatures. Rekindling Phoenix comes back. Scarab God comes back. Scrap Eat Scrounger, an important card in Standard right now, again, comes back. Heart of Kieran dodges this. It's just, there's a lot you could say about the most played creatures in Standard. They just shrug off Damnation, so it might be the time. My number 4, with the caveat that, again, we're getting crazier as we go on. I want you to remember that. Probably going to be some dislikes. But anyway, number 4 is Path to Exile or Swords to Plowshares. Now, Swords to Plowshares has the benefit of actually being from the plane of Dominaria. This is the only one that I'm cheating and going off plane for, because this is from Alara. Obviously, it was from Conflux. Which took place on Alara, Vorthos. So there, nerds. Anyway, I'll go off of Dominaria for a second and pluck out of the ether Path to Exile, because I'd love to have this in Standard. I don't think that it's too crazy. I don't think it's too crazy. I don't necessarily think you want Swords to Plowshares in Modern, because that would give Modern like 2 different paths, or 2 different swords, really, if you want to be technical about it. I don't know that we need that, but I would love to see a 1-mana white exile this guy piece, even if you have to not functionally reprint either one of the 2 cards, but just make a whole new one that's not Condemn, don't do that, but something sort of in between Path to Exile and Condemn. That would be fine with me too, but I just think Standard needs a really good exile that guy piece, and I think that it needs to be white, because, you know, blue-white control right now is really kind of on the downswing. People thinking Approach was going to be an amazing deck. Now Grixis control and blue-black control are occupying the control space, and I think that Approach needs to be in the conversation when it comes to control decks. You could argue that it is in Standard right now, but I think the other control decks just have it all over. The results bear that out, at least. And so I'd really like blue-white control to have a really just knockout early piece of exile removal that takes care of a lot of the most important threats in the format that are all sort of dependent on exile removal. You know, you have to have exile removal to deal with a lot of these things, and I know they just printed Baffling in. And like the stats on Baffling In makes it look like they will come nowhere even close to reprinting Swords or Path, but a guy can dream, and I actually think Standard might be able to handle it. We're coming around the corner here. We're in the top 3. My number 3, again, it's going to get really crazy right around here, you guys, so just hold on. Be with me on this. My number 3, I had to pick a card from the Dark, or at least I really wanted to, because it's one of my favorite sets of all time. Thematically, love it, love the expansion symbol, love the Dark. I wanted a card from the Dark, and at first I was like, Ball Lightning? We'll do Ball Lightning? It's not exciting enough. Blood Moon. Do it? Do it. Just you did it in like, what, 8th and 9th edition? It's fine. I know that was a while back, but you can do it. Just, who cares? I know you just printed a version of Blood Moon, but who doesn't want to play a deck called 8 Moon in Standard? I would love to play 8 Moon. Blood Moon I actually don't think is like unsafe. I really don't. You could even print Magus of the Moon. I'd be totally fine with that. But I think it'd be so cool to reprint Blood Moon. And again, I already said this with Stone Rain. I want a bunch of cool non-basics in Dominaria. I want to either reprint them or come up with cool new ones. So if we're putting a bunch of ridiculous non-basics in the set, then it would stand to reason that a card like this is just control for those ridiculous pieces. So Blood Moon I actually don't think breaks a whole heck of a lot. I wouldn't mind seeing it. My number 2 is another one that I will compromise with you on, Wizards. I will. You don't have to go all the way and reprint Counterspell. You don't. But I kind of hope you do. You could reprint Mana Leak, but I actually sort of argue that it's safer to reprint Counterspell than it is Mana Leak, at least in the current Standard. If you reprint a bunch of crazy non-basics to tap for whatever color, then yeah, Counterspell is going to be a lot easier to get to. But right now, Mana Leak is so much easier to get to, and just as effective in the turns that matter for like Grixis control and blue-black control. So I'm not actually sure. I think that Mana Leak might go harder than Counterspell in the current format. So if you wanted to print Counterspell, I don't actually think it would be too crazy of a problem. I don't know. Maybe I played a lot of Magic in the 90s. I played against Counterspell for it feels like most of my Magic career. So maybe I'm just blunted on it. Like I'm numb to how ridiculous Counterspell would be in Standard. But honestly, I don't know, man. It's just Counterspell. I know that sounds ridiculous to some players, but hey, I played against Counterspell forever. It's just Counterspell. But finally, my number 1, the one that's going to set the comments section ablaze. I'm pretty sure at least. This seems crazy, but I will at least argue for it. My number 1 is Bop. Birds of Paradise. I want it back. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, Mark Rosewater has already said that, like, Lana War Elves is too powerful. Like, I actually had Lana War Elves on this list at first, and I was like, wait, crazy? Birds of Paradise. I'm just making number one. So, Wizards has already sort of said that it's just too ridiculous to have turn 1 ramp in Standard. This is pretty much the best turn 1 ramp of all time, so am I crazy? Well, first of all, we don't have any, like, this doesn't have synergies. This doesn't have, like, any sort of tribal synergy or anything like that at all in Standard. Lana War Elf at least would have that going for it. So there's that. But the real argument here is that there is a ton of 1 mana removal already in this Standard that just kills Bop like crazy. Out of the sideboard, you can even play like Dual Shot and a bunch of other stuff. You know, there's a ton of sideboard options. But even in main decks, people are playing Magma Spray, people are playing Shock, Fatal Push. Again, if you reprint Path to Exile, or even if you reprint Lightning Bolt, these are all controls for Birds of Paradise. And we already have, like, more 1 mana answers to Birds of Paradise than usually exist when Birds of Paradise is in a format. And don't act like you didn't print this card in, like, a million base sets and a couple of other, like, random expansions. You printed this card 100,000 times. It's not really that many, but it feels like it. It feels like it. This was a very tame card to see for a very long time in Magic history. And I think that Standard might be able to handle it, especially if you print even more crazy removal. You could easily remove Birds of Paradise on turn 1, whether you're on the play or the draw. And with all the other good removal I want you to print, and that we already have, you could easily kill, like, any, 3-drop that they ramp into on turn 2. And by the way, one more thing, as far as Birds of Paradise. Note that most 3-drops are bad in this format. Jadelight Ranger, and what else? What else? Pianalar, I guess. Deathgord Scavenger, I guess. It doesn't even seem that powerful to me on turn 2, to be honest. So there's not many ridiculous 3-drops to ramp into in the current Standard, at least, again, in a vacuum, right now. The meta as we know it. So, Ronus? But then, like, you can't attack with him probably for, I don't know, man. It's just, I guess if you get attacking with Ronus on turn 3, that'd be something. But there are ways to do that already, and nobody cares. If you're talking about 1-drops, let you swing with Ronus on turn 3, Bloodlust Insider. You could probably make that happen, but just still, who cares, There's just so many ways to take out birds right now. There's not too many crazy 3-drops. So I don't think that it would hurt things too badly. Those are my arguments, at least. So let me know how crazy I am. Have you drunk the Kool-Aid from Wizards and you think that 1 mana ramp is just something we can never ever have again? Have they actually turned the corner and convinced people of that? But I don't know, man. I actually think we could have this again, and it wouldn't hurt too much. Dinosaur decks would love it. There's at least that, and there's a ton of, 4-color mid-range strategies that would like to have this. I know we just banned Attune with Ether, but I'd make the case this is sort of not as good as Attune with Ether. You can't Fatal Push Attune with Ether, I think that if nothing else, even if you think I'm ridiculous, crazy for putting these on the list, it'll at least get, a dialogue started. And I think that's actually a really important thing. What's too powerful? What's not too powerful? What are the arguments for and against? It's actually a really important discussion to have. So go to the comment sections. Let me know how crazy I am, and let me know what you want to see reprinted. That's important too. Do all that stuff. Hit like if you enjoyed the video. Puts me in more recommended feeds. And again, it's a conversation worth having. So hit like. Make sure more people see the video. And if you want to, I'll leave you a link in the description. You can check out TCG Player. They help sponsor my content. They're the cheapest place, I'm totally serious, that you can get Magic product pretty much anywhere on the internet right now. They're essentially an aggregate site that puts together a bunch of different Magic card dealers and tells you which ones have the lowest price. It's nothing. It's all for you, bud. So just click the first link in the description. Check out their wares over there on the TCG Player. You can also, we're finishing up here, throw me $1 on Patreon if you want to. Just $1 a month. I know it's cheeseburger money. Everybody likes cheeseburgers. You can tell I like a good cheeseburger. But if you have the extra buck, throw me $1 a month on Patreon. I'll let you know what videos we're doing the day before we do them. Valuable information, like 10 times a month. We do 3 videos a week. So like 10, 12 times a month, you'll get a notification that's like, hey, we're putting out a video tomorrow. Here's what it is. That's good for $1. So get in there at patreon.com/SBMTG. Throw me $1 if you can possibly afford it. And with that, I think I'm actually done with all the spiels and such. So I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.